Hi, I'm Eddie Mulligan, owner and managing director of Aerofast Tiedowns. Today I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Aerofast and give you some useful information about Tiedowns, how to select them and how to use them in an appropriate manner. Aerofast has been in business for over 30 years. We were formed back in 1981 here in Christchurch, New Zealand, so it's a long time and we know what we're doing. We import the highest quality yarn from Europe, which we use to weave into over 1 million metres of webbing a year. That's 1,000 kilometres, the equivalent of Christchurch to Auckland or Sydney to Brisbane. We buy only the best quality metal components, hooks, ratchets, etc. and we sew everything together with the webbing we weave ourselves here in Christchurch. We have a permanent person on the ground in Asia who works closely with our component suppliers there. We also visit all the factories ourselves every year to make sure our quality standards are being followed. We are very particular on the quality of the components that we source. Once the webbing is produced, it goes through this cutting machine to make sure that it's cut to the exact same length every time and the end is cauterized to prevent fraying. Our sewing machines have a computerized pattern for each of the products that we make. The sew pattern has an important part in the strength of the final product. But before we sew any components into a finished product, we test it in here. This is Mike. He loves busting stuff. We test components before the containers are shipped here. We test the components when the container arrives, and then we test them again as part of the finished product. That's 3 times it's tested before we sell a tie-down. So you can see, we take the quality and reliability of our tie-downs seriously. The product we've just tested has a rated break strength of 1,000 kgs. As you can see, this sample broke at 1,360 kilos, which is more than 30% higher than required. We always build on a safety margin. All of our products are rated with a break strength, and this is where we make sure every product exceeds that rated strength. Tie-downs are a safety item, and it's critical that they can be relied on to do what they claim to do, year after year. And there are a lot on the market which don't. More on break strengths later. There are 3 main components to a tie-down: the webbing, the tensioning device, and the end fittings. Important characteristics with webbing are the composition. It's typically polyester or polypropylene. How it is weaved. The webbing has to be UV treated for New Zealand and Australia's harsh environments. The webbing shouldn't have a lot of stretch to ensure your loads don't move. The webbing shouldn't lose any strength when it's wet. Our webbing is made from high tenacity, UV treated polypropylene. This ensures our webbing has very limited stretch and maintains strength when wet, and we believe it's the best in the world. We've been buying our yarn from a leading manufacturer in Spain for more than 20 years, and we've never had an issue with them. The tensioning device is usually either a ratchet or a cam lock. These must be of good quality steel, and you get what you pay for. Mechanisms must be firm with little or no sideways movement. We use the best we can find. You can even see here the difference in the weight between an Aerofast ratchet and somebody else's. The end fittings are hooks of some description. Once again, these need to be of quality steel and the hooks have to be heat treated for strength. There are a lot of cheaper alternatives, but their strength is either unreliable or just not up to it. Now listen carefully, as this can get confusing. There are 2 strength ratings for a tie-down, the break strength and the lashing capacity. The Australian-New Zealand standard for tie-downs states that only those 2 terms can be used, i.e. break strength and lashing capacity. Terms such as safe working load limit, or maximum load strength should not be used in New Zealand or Australia, as these do not meet the requirements of the standards, and in fact are designed for other countries. The break strength is the maximum load the tie-down assembly will take before breaking. The lashing capacity is always half the brake strength. This then allows for a safety factor of 2 to 1. The Australian and New Zealand standard states that the lashing capacity must be stated on both the packaging as well as a safety label that is permanently attached to the tie-down. The Aerofast product has brake strength and lashing capacity on the packaging, and then the lashing capacity on the safety label of the product. The Australian-New Zealand guidelines state that the combined lashing capacity of the tie-downs should be double the weight of the load. This is where it gets tricky. For example, this load of 1000 kg would require a combined lashing capacity of 2000 kg. Now this lashing capacity could be made up by one tie-down with a lashing capacity of at least 2000 kg, or two tie-downs with a lashing capacity of at least 1000 kg each. However, it is recommended that at least two tie-downs are used to secure a load. Another way to look at this is the combined brake strength needs to be 4 times the weight of the load. There are 3 questions to be answered here: the type of tie-down required, the strength required, and the length required. The most popular type of tie-down is a ratchet tie-down. It has a hook at each end and a ratchet in the middle as a tensioning device. Ratchet tie-downs are ideal for fixed or rigid loads such as timber, furniture, building materials, etc. The ratchet allows you to get a high level of tension on the load. Ratchet tie-downs are incredibly strong, so you need to be very careful that you don't over-tighten a tie-down using a ratchet. The next most popular tie-down is a cam-lock tie-down, and this example is on a motorcycle tie-down. This is the same as the ratchet tie-down, except with a cam lock as the tensioning device instead of a ratchet. Cam locks are easier to use as the webbing is normally permanently fed through the cam lock, and to tighten them, all you need to do is pull the tail strap. The harder you pull, the tighter the tension. Cam locks are useful on flexible or fragile loads such as garden rubbish, glass, motorcycles, etc. It's easier to control the tension on the load with a cam lock. And the final type of tie-down is an endless tie-down. These are a one-piece tie-down where there is either a cam lock or ratchet and then a length of webbing and no hooks. These are designed for bundling or holding items together. The webbing goes around the items and then back through either the cam lock or ratchet for tensioning. The most common type of endless tie-down is a roof rack tie-down, which is used to attach ladders and pipes to roof racks, and normally range in length from 1 metre to 3 metres. The weight and dimensions of the intended load will determine the tie-down which is most suitable. Another important note is to ensure that the load you are restraining is secured against the bulkhead of your truck, ute or trailer, or in other words, up against something solid. A tie-down is essentially designed to create downward friction on the load to reduce the risk of it moving. There are an almost infinite number of uses for tie-downs, and Aerofast has an extensive range for many different applications. Aerofast has made the selection process a bit easier by categorizing our range into some key applications. Then, to make it all easier again, we've color-coded the packaging. We've created 6 categories. You can see here, DIY Handyman is red, Tradesman is orange, Recovery and Towing is green, Motorcycle dark blue, Marine aqua blue, and Truck grey. Those colours are also on our packaging to make it easier for you to find the correct product. The key points in our packaging to look for are category, here in the top left-hand corner, brake strength, here in the top right-hand corner, and length, here in the white box. Aerofast has the widest selection of tie-downs available in the market. We do not believe in a one-size-fits-all strategy. For example, a motorcycle tie-down is designed specifically for tying down motorcycles without damaging the handlebars. Now, as you can see, we don't have a category for old rope. Unless you know what the brake strength of the rope is and are proficient at tying reliable knots, using an old piece of rope to tie your load is dangerous. The best case is your load will fall off and smash in the road. The worst case is your load will fall off and smash into someone else and cause some serious damage or injury. It's that worst case we really worry about the most. Beware of the webbing of the tie-downs rubbing on sharp edges, for example sheets of timber or iron. Any movement will damage and severely weaken the webbing. Always use an Aerofast webbing protector sleeve, cardboard or something similar between the webbing and any sharp edges of the load. The webbing should not be twisted. If there is a twist and it enters the ratchet mechanism, it can be difficult to release. It can also weaken the webbing when it's under tension. Get as much tension as possible in the load before ratcheting up the last bit of webbing. The ratchet is only designed to hold a certain amount of webbing. If the ratchet is overloaded, it can be difficult to release. Small cuts or damage to the webbing will dramatically reduce the strength of the tie-down. More than 50% drop in strength can be expected. Well, that concludes your first lesson on tie-downs. It really is a matter of choosing the most suitable product for the end use. And remember, when it comes to quality and dependability, you really do get what you pay for.